to another episode of Talking Politics here at The Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news making the headlines in domestic politics. Last week saw both candidates for the polls for to elect the next president of India, that is Draupadi Murmu, the NDA's candidate, and Yashwant Sinha, the opposition candidate, hit the campaign trail, visiting various states to get support for their candidature. In Telangana's capital of Hyderabad, Mr. Sinha's visit was coincidentally at the same time as the BJP's national executive, that big jamboree being held in the city. Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao created quite a stir when, for the third time in a row, he refused to be at the airport to greet Prime Minister Modi upon his arrival. A war of words erupted between the BJP and the TRS over this breach in what BJP termed as violating an established federal protocol. This loud fight, however, is not what we will be looking at as far as this week's episode of Talking Politics is concerned. Well, we will be examining that which was said by Prime Minister Narendra Modi behind closed doors at the meeting of the BJP's national executive and was not part of any official briefing by the BJP. During the discussion over the recently concluded by-polls in the seats of Azamgarh and Rampur in the Lok Sabha in Uttar Pradesh, seats considered strongholds of the Samajwadi Party and previously held by former Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh Akhilesh Yadav and senior party leader Azam Khan. Both seats were won by the BJP in these by-polls despite having a substantial population of minorities and other communities that traditionally went with the Samajwadi Party and avoided the BJP. While UP BJP chief Swatantra Dev Singh was speaking, Prime Minister Modi made an intervention. He said that the time had now come for the BJP to explore social coalitions and equations with communities that considered the BJP as untouchable, but that these explorations should be different than the ones that other political parties did. In short, he made a case for appealing to backward sections of Muslims, the Pasmandas, ethnically diverse sections among that community, Muslims who were different linguistically from other Muslims, and among Christian communities on issues that both the BJP and these communities could come together on, basically neatly avoiding the overarching plank of identity politics and building coalitions, social and political coalitions on different issues. What did he mean by all of this in terms of how it could be worked out, and how is this expected to unfurl as a political strategy? As an idea, reaching out to Pasmanda Muslims, non-Ashrafs, non-Sayyids, as they are also referred to, and sections of other minority communities on issues other than this monolithic sort of idea or issue of religious identity is not new. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar had tried this in Bihar years ago with limited success. With the backwardness and deprivation of these non-Ashraf Pasmanda Muslims was highlighted, and a difference drawn between them, their concerns, their way of life, what their problems are, and elite sections of Muslim society, and what issues they talk about when talking about representing Muslim interests. Backwardness and claims on state patronage on the basis of the backwardness of the Pasmanda Muslims were the areas of appeal here, rather than just religious identity. In 2002, in fact, late Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar had been successful in getting the Christian community in Goa, traditional supporters of non-BJP parties in that state, on board with the BJP, and he won assembly elections in that state to become chief minister. This was considered a very big achievement for the BJP. Traditionally, minorities have cut them a very broad swath and kind of avoided voting for BJP in various elections. But the fact that Mr. Parrikar could get Christian community a significant vote bank in Goa to go with him was important. He had mobilized support from across the spectrum of Goan society on the issues of governance and corruption in high places. In fact, in 2013, during the Karnataka Assembly elections, some of these Christian MLAs elected on a BJP ticket was sent to Mangalore, which has again a very significant Christian population, to talk to the Christian community there to kind of get support for the BJP's candidates in those seats. But they didn't get much success because the issues on which the mobilization was happening was clearly different in Karnataka and in Goa. That happened in 2012. So therefore, issues are important, which is again what Prime Minister Modi had also flagged. He said welfare and all these other issues should be brought into the mix when talking about social coalitions with minority communities. So again, what is new in what the Prime Minister suggested? Actually, Prime Minister had been speaking about it behind closed doors within party circles for some time now, and it was only in the BJP National Executive that he articulated this view. Again, this was not part of the official briefing, but something that came out after the meeting was over, when journalists kind of found out that this was the kind of discussion that had happened. Well, he is reported to have said that just as Hindu society is looked at in terms of caste and other divisions, and social coalitions across communities are explored, it was time that BJP too stopped looking at minority communities only through the prism of religious identity and more in terms of ethnicity, class, and caste groups within religious groups. Because if you differentiate between a particular group, if you look at it monolithically, you'll only see one issue on which you can relate to. But if you see sectional parts of these communities, there are many issues on which the BJP can explore social coalitions, that these sectional interests may be mobilized to form social coalitions with BJP voters. There was a strong element of mobilizing the subalterns within religious minority groups, of delinking them from the elites in their communities and the issues that the elites influence these groups to vote on, namely only on religious identity. There's an idea in the BJP that it is the elite among these communities that actually pushes them to vote because of their outsized influence in these communities, because of access to education and economic opportunities. The elites have been able to kind of influence even voting patterns on issues that the elites find important, necessarily not in the interests of the backward communities in those groups. While he pushed for a campaign wherein the welfare distribution by the BJP government over the last 8 years could be used to leverage support. Now, the first demonstration of this kind of sectionalizing minority groups came on Tuesday, July 5th, when Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma and the Assam cabinet approved the identification of 5 Assamese Muslim subgroups: the Gorias, the Morias, the Jolhas, Deshis, and Sayeds, as indigenous Assamese Muslim communities. A note from the cabinet said that the move will ensure their development in health, cultural identity, education, financial inclusion, skill development, and women empowerment. These communities are considered distinct from Bengali-speaking Muslims who have a history of migration from present-day Bangladesh, then East Pakistan, to Assam over the last century or so. This group has often expressed, this linguistically distinct Assamese-speaking group have often expressed the need for a separate identity. So here, the sectionalizing is happening on the basis of ethnic and linguistic differences. The decision came following the recommendations of a panel constituted by the Assam government last year to discuss socio-economic issues concerning Assamese Muslim communities in the state. The panel was set up in July last year after Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma's meeting with Assamese Muslims from various fields: writers, doctors, cultural workers, lecturers, historians, and musicians, among others, to discuss socio-economic challenges faced by the community. The stated aim of Sarma's outreach was the community's welfare. In the meeting, he emphasized that the uniqueness of the indigenous Assamese Muslims should be protected and preserved. Thus, Assamese Muslim communities' distinct identity based on language and ethnicity here is trumping the larger categorization of religion. A fact that was underlined by Mr. Sarma when he too spoke during the discussion over the political resolution at the BJP's national executive in Hyderabad. He said that the party was getting support from Muslim communities in local body polls based on civic issues as well, although not so much support during the Assembly and Lok Sabha elections. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's latest gambit is basically to reach out to communities that consider the party as a no-no as far as elections are concerned. The polarized atmosphere, however, for the last few years over the Citizenship Amendment Act, we saw massive protests, the use of bulldozers, and as well as violence over alleged blasphemy, can give this outreach pause. It is not a small undertaking for a party that fights on the plank of Hindutva, but it will be instructive to see how far and where this outreach goes. This is all I have for you this week. Thank you for watching.